Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Right down the road. Pump it up, yeah.
All right, well, welcome back. Good to have everybody back. Our first one of these in 24. And our February signing date, obviously recruiting never ends. And for us to be able to add a few more names to the roster, both from the transfer perspective and from the high school perspective, that's what today is all about. Recruiting is going to continue to evolve. I suspect the December signing date is going to be pushed up, but I think this February date will always live here. So we'll always have some level of recruiting that, this is another stopping point. Doesn't mean we'll be done with our 24 class necessarily, but we do have an opportunity really to turn the page into 25s, and that's what we have been doing for much of this year. But real excited about this group we are adding, and a couple guys have already been with us now since the semester started in mid-January. I'll speak to the transfers first. Alec Eckert, D lineman, transferring from Washington State. He's from Lewiston, Idaho. Really excited about what Alec can bring. Alec's got 2 years to play. Hasn't played much to this point. But Washington State's the staff that I know really well. His D-line coach, Pete Caligas, was my first call when we knew Alec was available, and Pete had nothing but good things to say about who Alec was as a worker, as a person. He was maybe caught a little bit between positions for them, but we couldn't be more than excited to bring Alec into the Bobcat football program. Immediately we know that he's going to provide competition. Our depth was challenged there last year, and graduation saw Blake Hale depart, and then a transfer saw Sebastian Valdez depart. So to bring Alec in and have him be able to compete in those interior two positions is certainly something that's going to be helpful for our defense. And I know Alec's going to really compete and want to do everything he can to take advantage of the opportunities in front of him. Next up, Samora Ezekiel. Samora was an O-lineman out of Fort Worth that we had visited, that we'd recruited as a high school athlete a couple years back. He ultimately chose to go to the North Texas with the turnover, I suppose, that they've had in their program after 2 seasons, 3 semesters. He was looking for a new home, and we were one of the first places I know that he immediately thought of. So really excited to bring Zeke into our program and compete. Much like the defensive line, we did lose a couple guys on the offensive line, and to be able to not necessarily replace, but find guys that can come in and compete. It was something that we needed beyond the high school guys that we added, and I'm certain that Zeke's going to do that. Again, he didn't play very much at North Texas, but he has really developed from what we recall going back 2 years ago as a high school player. And I know he's excited to be here. Coach Johnson's really excited to work with him. He does have position flexibility, certainly athletic enough and good enough length to play tackle. And at the same time, I think those the skill set, the size could translate to playing on the interior as well. So really excited about Samora. Dylan Rollins, really excited to get Dylan in the program. Dylan, is a legacy here. His dad, Josh, and his brother, Byron, both played here. Byron was a senior my first year here. Dylan was the Gatorade Player of the Year in 2020. So from a recruiting perspective, I knew him from when I was at Wyoming. We had offered him leading into the summer of his senior year. So I was aware of Dylan. Obviously, he had all kinds of opportunities, chose to go to BYU, spent his first year there. From there, he went on his mission, and he's still on his mission. But in the midst of that, entered the transfer portal this December, and we were able to quickly pick up the relationship to some degree, because there was a relationship that had been developed, certainly with his family, with Byron playing here. And, I think Coach Johnson and Dylan were really able to develop a relationship over the last couple months, and ultimately, bringing Dylan back home here to the state of Montana is a great thing for our program. Dylan's a tackle by nature, 6'6", 290 plus, and the mission hasn't taken its toll on him necessarily. I know missions for offensive linemen, depending on where they're at, can put them in a situation where they lose a lot of weight. He was on a mission here in the United States, so he's been able to maintain a level of nutrition and a level of working out, and we're excited to get him here come this summer. And he has 4 years to compete. So to bring in 2 linemen, one with 3, one with 4, certainly both have athleticism and flexibility as far as position goes, and they can compete. We see it, really day one, fortifies that O-line depth that was hit a little bit, as through our departures, but really excited about those 3 transfers. I know we talked about Rohan Jones back in December. Rohan's been here and doing a great job, in his 3 weeks plus that he's been here working at the tight end position. So, the transfer portal is part of college football, and I think there's going to be ebbs and flows both ways. And however disappointed we can be about the guys that moved on, we got to be more excited about the guys we're adding to the program, and that's how we feel here today. High school wise, as of now, we added 3 high school players, 2 DBs, a quarterback. First off, Seth Johnson from Frisco, Texas, from Reedy High School. Seth's a guy that's played primarily corner, but I think both guys you'll see that we sign, I think, have position flexibility. And really in the secondary right now, we want to find guys that can cover first and foremost, guys that can cover, guys that are willing tacklers. And I think it's Seth. He's both of those. Had a couple interceptions for touchdowns. He had 4 on the season, 21 tackles, 16 pass breakups. So doing all the things we're looking for. I think Seth's a guy that really can develop physically as well. We got on him through the month of January, and really excited about Seth, his background. He had an older brother that played at Wisconsin and played in the NFL, and I think his future is really bright. And a football background, coming from the Frisco area, obviously wasn't familiar with us from the standpoint that he was at that game a couple years ago, but I think is knows full well what FCS football is all about. And I know Seth is excited to get up here and show what he can do. Next up, Davion Super Alice, quarterback out of Graham Kapowson in Washington. We went into this cycle with no intention to take a quarterback. Honestly, we had 6 on the roster. Back in the fall, we lost John Chambers to graduation, but we were still going to be carrying 5 moving forward. Davion was a guy that had been on our radar, was a quarterback for the same team that Jabaz Woods played on, but again, there wasn't necessarily an opportunity. As we began the semester, found out that Luke Abshire was not going to continue on the team, not going to continue with school. Congratulations to Luke. He got engaged over the holiday break, and I think he wanted to make a shift in his time commitments and those type of things. So that provided an opportunity, and Davion was right there as far as who we were looking at. Tremendous career, tremendous senior year in particular, leading them to the state championship game. Ultimately, in the 14 games, threw for almost 3,500 yards. Tremendous touchdown to interception ratio of 44-5, but also rushed for over 700 yards. And, so has an athleticism about him that he's capable of doing all the things that we would ask. Love the way he is as a competitor. And I think for him, the quarterback recruiting world is a tricky world sometimes. And, he saw himself as a Division I quarterback, and our opportunity for him matched up well. We were fortunate that Sam Mix had developed a relationship with him, even though we maybe didn't have this opportunity that was always going to be there. But also he was able to lean on, I think, what Jabez saw in Montana State, and why Jabez chose this. So, really over the last 3 weeks, we were able to, get him here, show him what we're all about. Had a chance to meet with Coach Keaton, our new quarterbacks coach, and really liked what we saw. So really excited about Davion and his ability to continue to move that quarterback room along. Last, Carson Williams, DB out of Houston Westfield. Carson was a guy that we got on, or we're on, I should say, through the process, but really, I think accelerated our thoughts on him after that first signing date. Carson had a lot of attention between now and then. Went on a couple of visits, had some FBS opportunities, and ultimately chose Montana State for a host of reasons. But I think he felt like this was home. Like Seth, a guy that we think has flexibility, has a willing tackler, 26 tackles, 3 interceptions, 21 pass breakups. So a great combination of the things we're looking for in the secondary. I think both him and Seth, Carson and Seth, possess great speed. They're both track athletes as well, and really excited about our continuation to recruit DBs that can really run and they can cover, and then again have that flexibility to play a few different positions back there. So that's the group as it stands right now. I know we'll have a few more guys, I think, to announce, at minimum one, I would suspect. And like I said before, recruiting never really ends until you get to the fall, I guess. I mean, there's always potential for your roster to change, but as far as this group goes, I think there's potential for some more high school kids to come into play. I think transfer wise, we're probably on hold right now, but you go through spring and your roster continues to evolve, and you want to continue to adapt to that. So we're trying to put not only the best team out there in 25 here in the fall, but to continue to build this program with that foundation of high school players that can get in our weight room, be a part of our nutrition program, can get in our systems and grow in the years to come. So really pleased with the efforts of our staff through this time. Certainly our players in their contributions, our current players, that is, and their contributions to the recruiting process, and being able to tell about their experience. When you're recruiting guys from out of state, the first guys they look to are the guys that are here from those areas, and it's clear that our guys are enjoying themselves and they're able to convey that when these guys come on campus. And talking about the 3 transfers, I think their familiarity with Montana State as they were coming out of high school was a big part. I know Alec, this was before I was the head coach, but looked at Montana State as a choice. I spoke to Zeke and him coming up on a visit out of his high school year, and obviously Dylan's ties to Montana State, both from his dad and from his brother, would have brought him over to Bozeman several times. So really pleased about this group and collectively as we look at this entire recruiting class. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Legal tip of the day. If you have contact with law enforcement, everything you say can be used against you. Be very polite, respect the badge, and simply say, "Please let me call my attorney, Dwight Schulte."
I guess with Carson Williams, I know Jody Owens was recruited. Seth pretty heavily was kind of the main guy. Was he also with Carson one of the?
Carson would have probably been more Brian Shepard. Nick, John Baptiste recruits Houston, so Nick would have been the initial point of contact. Brian, just given the nature of where we were at and that recruiting process really taking off in December, was the lead. But you are correct, Jody, with again the nature of when Seth's recruiting started and he recruiting down in the Dallas-Fort Worth area was the lead. So both those guys did a great job in developing relationships, not only with the young men, but their families in a pretty short time.
Yeah, those new coaches like Keaton as well, and they've all been kind of hitting the ground running as far as recruiting so far.
Yeah, that's the nature of it. You hire someone in January, the first thing they do is go out recruiting. So they, I think in both Jody and Chucky's case, they were here when our semester started. Generally speaking, Chucky was here the second week, but had a chance to first spend time, at least a couple days, with our current players and do everything they could to get to know them. But yeah, they spent better part of the last 2 weeks out recruiting.
With now that we're kind of through this cycle, I mean, I know there's a lot of change that still could happen, but how do you feel now, like kind of in year 3, year 4, as far as transfer portal stuff? That you feel, has it changed at all over the course of this cycle of your time? How do you just reflect on it now?
Yeah, I think each year, I don't think you can have this absolute crystal ball. Even as we look at our roster this next year, and you're trying to figure out, okay, how many guys do we need at each one of these positions? We just did this Monday, as a matter of fact. You don't want to look at your roster and say, we're going to need a transfer guy here. We're going to need a transfer guy here, here, and here. I think then your roster itself isn't what you want. You want a roster that has old guys, young guys, old guys that can, older guys, I should say, that are going to carry you through the next couple of years, but young guys that you see developing. If you don't have that in any given position, that's where the transfer portal can service those needs. And so I think our roster's in good shape, but I do know, come November, December, it'll probably be a world that we'll be in every year in some regard, where there might be a guy or two going out, and there's going to be some need that has evolved through the course of the fall. And I do think, like all 3 of these guys, when you do have some previous knowledge, I think that's helpful. It's not an absolute. Rohan Jones, we didn't know a thing about, other than we could pull him up on film and see he was a good player. And, he knew about us in the grand scheme of things in FCS football. So I think you got to just continue to adapt. But to think that we are going to build ourselves off of it, I think we'd be, doing a disservice to our high school recruiting and our ability to develop. But there's always going to be a balance, I would say.
Yeah, you mentioned in December, just with this new era of the portal, the really talented high schoolers that are getting looked over almost in a sense. So could you just expand on that again, and what Montana State offers to those kinds of guys?
Yeah, whatever the gap is, I don't have specific numbers necessarily, but you get the sense that there, well, I know there's less high school kids signing at the FBS level. So, there's every bit as many high school kids that are capable of playing Division I football. And I think it's different regionally across our country. In some ways based on how many FBS schools are in your relative region. So I think particularly where we recruit, there's some pockets where, our ability to go in and be that option for the guys that are, slipping through, I'd say the Power 4 now cracks. I think we can be right there. And it's up to our coaches. I think about the Carson Williams situation. It wasn't like we all of a sudden just found out about him in December. He was a guy that, sometimes a guy figuring out where he's going to fit in the grand scheme of things does take some time. And, hopefully our recruiting coach in those particular areas knows all about him. And, we can put the accelerator down, so to speak, when that opportunity presents itself. So, each year is going to be a little bit different, how it'll appear next year, based on, even the regional schools that choose to recruit a little bit differently at the high school level. I think there's that trickle down. So, this year we were heavier Washington and Texas from an out-of-state perspective, with no California signees. That doesn't mean that won't shift, next year. It won't mean, we have 6 Washington incoming student athletes. It won't mean we have 6 next year. So I think we just got to be able to continue to adapt. I think we have a great program to sell in a great community and, at a great institution. So I think when we do get our foot in the door, I think it becomes clear that we are, can be an amazing opportunity for these young men. I think that's, it's just getting to that point where, okay, they see Montana State as an opportunity, and then they come here and take a look. And I think in a lot of cases, it blows them away.
Coach, we've obviously seen, players transferring out, but we're seeing a lot of coaches get new jobs and new positions. So just in your eyes, how has that affected recruiting and or, transfer portals coming in?
Well, I think at our level, you're probably going to have turnover every year, right, in some regard, at from a coaching perspective. And no different, it provides an opportunity to bring in new coaches. And I think, in Jody Owens and Chucky Keaton, I'm really excited about those hires, not only because of who they are maybe on paper, but who they are as men, and then how excited they are to be here. In Jody's case, I think that it states the obvious when, he's a alum and he's a Hall of Famer here. He's spent a year coaching here, all those things. But his want to get back here was very serious. And in Chucky, there was some overlap with him and Coach Udy, both at Utah State and Texas Tech. I certainly knew who he was as a player, but getting a chance to sit down with him, and then I think for him to look at this as a real opportunity was very exciting. So to maybe best answer your question, we are going to have some movement, but I do think we have an attractive opportunity here, and what that does, it creates a new staff and a new way for us to recruit. Both of them, Jody and Chucky, being Texas natives, bolsters, our recruiting down there. Simply, if nothing else, Jody can tell his story of how he was a high school athlete at Mesquite Horn, and ultimately he chose Montana State, and what that not only was like in the moment, but then also what that's meant for him, for years on end now. So it's all good. I mean, change is change, and change is part of life, and change is certainly part of college football, and we gotta adapt, and we've done that, and I'm really pleased about our staff and our team right now.
Chucky, I believe, was hurt when you were at Wyoming and when you faced Utah State. Is that right?
Yeah, both 14 and 15. His last 2 years there, my first 2 years at Wyoming, he was hurt in our games, but had a chance to watch him on film quite a bit when you're watching crossover film, and he was very impressive, and I certainly would have known of him before that, just following college football. Chucky Keaton was a known commodity in the college football world. So, I think he brings just a wealth of experience from his playing days, but then the different stops and even the different positions he's coached in his coaching career. Really excited about that entire experience that he brings to the table.
And on the recruiting side, I think maybe Sheridan, Wyoming is the only place with multiple guys from the same school outside of Montana, other than Graham Kapowson. So I was just curious if you could speak a little more. I know we've talked about Sam Mix's roots there, but just how much he seems to have a pull with.
Yeah, I think again, not the same as like that story I talked about with Jody, but Sam was a young man, played high school football in Washington, and came out to Montana, went to Montana State Northern for his college career. And I do think there's something to be said for him being able to speak to what that experience was like for him, just to come from Washington to Montana in general. Now, we're selling Montana State University here in Bozeman. But I think Sam, is a really genuine recruiter, and he gets to know the guys really well. And I think conversations are easy. Developing a relationship that's much more than football, it has become apparent. I think he knows the landscape, certainly being from out there. So his efficiency in getting around pretty heavily populated area has been good. But I think in a short time as a recruiter, he's been able to develop trust with high school coaches. And that's, that really paid dividends this year. And it's a lot about hard work and just Sam being who he is on the recruiting trail. And, that carrying through to when those kids come here and, they see the things and feel the things that he's talked about all the way through. And our guys from that area just loving their experience, being added to that relationship building, I think has been, all those things add up to our success there.
Has a loved one been charged or accused of a crime? If so, the stress can leave anyone feeling helpless and alone. But you don't have to be alone. Hi, I'm Dave Maldonado, and I've successfully defended Montanans for over a decade in these situations. So if you're tired of being scared, let's get you prepared. To see how, visit BigSkyDefender.com today.
You are not alone. Visit BigSkyDefenders.com to find out more on how you can fight back against local and federal criminal charges.
Couple for me. You mentioned just the transfer, sort of identifying transfers. How have you maybe changed in terms of how you feel they can impact your program?
Well, you hope that they get here and give them a week or so. They're integrated because they're in a place they want to be. They have the right mindset, and kind of after the initial adjustment of just being in a new place, getting your classes, making sure we got them all set up with a place to live, all that stuff. They're part of it. I think the three guys that are here, we're a few weeks into the semester, obviously, but you'd go out there this morning and they're right in the mix as far as the belonging here. Now, we'll get to spring ball and there'll be an adjustment there. So I think in our world, when we're heavier high school to transfer, you really got to find guys that you believe are going to fit in, and it's not going to take real long. And we've, by and large, had that success because those guys need to feel immediately they're in the right place. I think if you don't get that pretty quickly, they're not getting what they're looking for necessarily, and maybe we aren't as well. So, again, being real intentional about that fit piece, and then, talking to our guys about, hey, we're going to bring transfers in at a couple spots. Hey, we got to embrace these guys. You'll find that they're good dudes. You don't have to just believe us on that, but they're good guys that, want to be here for the right reasons, and maybe allow for some open arms, adjustment, all that stuff. But once we get out in the weight room or running out on the turf or ultimately to practice, I think you'll get a sense for what they can do for us. So, it can't just be about flipping on the film and being mesmerized with someone's ability. They have to be, in a lot of ways, the right type of person too.
I was going to ask that, just sort of building trust within the guys that are already on your team. Do you feel like, though, there's also sort of an element of transfers are just kind of the way of the world now, so guys are a little bit more used to sort of seeing the comings and goings?
I think so. And I think guys can easily look back, and we can speak to, Cleveland Thomas and his coming in here and adjusting, or Sean Chambers or Ty McCullough, or Julius Davis. We can speak to those guys. And I think, once that world started, to your point, I think it is part of the deal now. If we were wholesaling it, and some of the moves maybe in their minds didn't make sense, I think that would be a little bit different deal. If we were trying to build that way, I think that's really hard because your foundation still has to be the guys that have been here. They have to be the ones that are most impactful in bringing those transfers, those new guys just in general along. But I definitely think it is, it's where we're at in college football. And I think we've all learned to adapt to it and ultimately embrace it to some degree.
You guys have done such a good job recruiting on the offensive line. How has that strategy evolved over the last couple of years?
Yeah, whether it's Al now or Brian before, those guys are taking the lead. I think they both have understood that, we got to be able to take all shapes and sizes to some degree, but we better have, there better be a baseline for athleticism. There better be this ability to develop them physically. They better have a good foundation. They better be guys that we feel like are competitors. You know, and then you get enough of those guys here and get them in the weight room with Coach Heron. You know, the cream will rise to the top, and I think when you have had the success we've had running the football, in particular, I suppose as an O lineman, you want to go to a place where the O-line matters, but more so where you can see O linemen develop. You know, all 5 of our starters were postseason honorees in some element this year, and that probably doesn't happen all too often at the national level. So, you know, I think we just got to keep building on that. You know, we're going to have a whole bunch of turnover next year simply by graduation, but we really like the guys coming up, and that's better be how you feel on a continuum. Those names are going to change, and maybe the skill set, the body types change just a little bit. But that overall ability to put 5 guys out there and really be able to lean on them has to be, you know, where we start on offense.
And when it comes to Dylan Rollins, he's such he's transfer by title, but I mean, you know, his dad showed me pictures of him wearing Bobcat gear when he's like 2 years old. So it's sort of been in him all this time. So, I mean, what do you think of just the dynamic of adding somebody that's dreamed about being a part of your program for a long time, but also has FBS credentials?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. There are guys that out of Montana, you know, find themselves with those FBS opportunities, and you certainly hope by and large it works out for them. But if it doesn't, and they're looking for a place, you hope either in our recruiting process or like the case in Dylan growing up, you know, following the Cats and you know, watching his brother play here, knowing his dad played here. And there's obviously a real benefit in that. You know, we weren't the only opportunity that Dylan had, but it became clear that this is the opportunity that, you know, once he got a chance to get to know me a little bit better, get to know Coach Johnson a little bit better, because he's still on his mission. This isn't a deal where he could visit anywhere. So we had an upper hand there, with the inside knowledge relative to the mission. You know, other guys that go off and are FBS transfers, more than likely they would be able to return back home here and visit. But unique situation with Dylan. So I think the family lineage, you know, most recently with Byron, you know, overlapping 1 year with me as the head coach. So there was that year of okay, what is our program? What was his experience like? What does our program look like? I think that all certainly helped, and because by and large, we want all our guys to love being here, want to be here, and I think in Dylan's case, that's not something that needs to grow over time. That's already how he feels, and we can't wait to get him here. You know, and he's got a bunch of high school teammates here too. I think that certainly helps. You know, no one is in his particular class, but younger, older, and I know those guys are really excited to be playing with Dylan again.
When I lived out in Washington, Graham Kapowson was like a powerhouse. Are they still really good? Do they still produce like a ton of D1 talent?
Yeah, great program, and they were runners up this year. I hadn't been out there until this go around in the recruiting cycle, getting a chance to sit down with Coach Logan. He happens to be a Graham Kapowson alum, but then he went to Montana Western, so he went to college out here, played college football over in Dillon. Yeah, I think in this day and age in a big metro area to have a program that really they have an amazing feeder program, and those kids in this day and age of kids being able to transfer everywhere and bounce schools, those kids grow up. Eagles, I believe, is their mascot, and they make it all the way through the program. You know, Davion and Jabez go back to playing at a young age in that program, and just hearing even it was Jabez's dad talk about, you know, what that development looks like, and they have you know, a really young son right now that's just in the starting point of that program. I think it's, you know, it's continuity within the coaching staff. Coach Logan took over for Coach Curley, I believe, that had been there forever and really got this going. And, you know, their consistency so much because those kids grow up within that program. You have the kids, you run in the same systems going down to, grade school, I believe. There's something to that. And that's, in larger metro areas, you don't see that a whole bunch.
And last one for me, when it comes to having a couple new coordinators, what's their role in recruiting? How much is it an evaluation? How much is it in person? And how much sort of feedback do they give you when you're sort of assembling this class?
Yeah, I think with Tyler taking over on offense and Bobby and Sean taking over on defense, they just take the lead. Their voice, in the short term of this class finishing up, probably didn't get much louder. I think, as we move forward, you want your coordinators knowing about every position. Everybody should go through them on their way to me as far as, our evaluations go. I certainly value their opinions in large part because they've been around our program now, all 3 years that I've been the head coach here. I think they have a good sense for how we want to do things and everything. So really trusting them to take the lead. And then, certainly when each one of these young men have been on campus, they've been more involved than they would be than just being position coaches, I guess. So, certainly an involvement in more so moving forward. But they were definitely involved more than they would have been in their previous positions.
Thanks, Coach.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.